Call the order for the City Council of Eldridge, Iowa, made the whole meeting on Monday, August 5th, 2024 at 6:03 PM. Roll call.
Blackwell,
Present.
Campbell,
Present.
Collins,
Present.
Dockery,
Present.
Gilsey,
Present.
Guys, we got the microphones using.
Looking for approval of the agenda as presented.
So moved. Roy? So moved.
Hey, Dockery, second. By Collins, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Old business discussion on council approval for purchasing budgeted items and a threshold for non-budgeted items. Vatican, I pass this to you.
Sure. So we've talked several times about different purchasing authorizations. We've got, we recently passed a $5,000 spending authorization for general engineering. This comes back to just our general purchasing guidelines and putting something in place that will help department heads, define what needs to come in front of council and when, as well as administration and what that approval level would go to. So for this initial draft that you have in front of you, I took some examples from other municipalities and put them together based on the size of our community and what our budget looks like and what some of our routine expenditures are. And then just put a general outline together for a draft for consideration to authorize those purchases and to define what's going to need to come in front of council for approval. One of the specific questions that we've run into several times in this new fiscal year's items that were passed in the budget already, specific vehicles or equipment that we have several quotes on. They come forward in the budget gets approved with those specific items listed out in the line item. And then trying to determine if, because of the amount of the purchase, if that needs to come back in front of council again when they're ready to make the budget in that or the purchase in that fiscal year. We would also be looking at that same definition for repair and maintenance budget and what the department heads or city administration can go ahead and authorize for what would be considered routine repair and maintenance expenditures that come up for our equipment or on the buildings and things like that. Also tying into that from our conversation that we had with auditors, setting credit card limits. What that standard spending limit should be when we open up credit cards for city staff and department heads and what those limits should be. And then looking at our training and travel expenses. Right now, we've kind of got two policies going. You can use your credit card and we can pay out of the travel and training fund lines when we pay those credit cards. Or we have some employees that do a reimbursement request and they pay for it personally and then get the money reimbursed back. In talking to the auditors, what we would be looking to do is have one policy that all the employees would follow. We either do the reimbursement and have a per diem for meals that we would track, or we would have everybody do expenditures on a city credit card for their travel and training and then pay it out of the fund line that way, since we do provide those purchasing cards for employees to use.
Well, it won't be a shock to you, but I'm not in favor of a whole lot in this document. First of all, I think employees should be using the city issued credit cards when traveling versus them taking advantage of the points and if we have to reimburse them for taxes. I think the spending levels and all this are way too high. We just went through some cases with the city clerk, the utility manager, and we're talking about hundreds of dollars at a time. Now we're gonna open up the book to council approval of 25,000, according to the way this is drafted. I don't care for it. Our responsibility at the end of the day as council members to be the fiduciary of the city and make sure every penny is spent correctly. Now, through budget times, we went through and appropriated funds for equipment. I think they should go ahead and buy it when the timing's right, but notify us when they're buying. There's a lot of things in this document I just don't get.
I am pleased to see that there is some type of movement regarding what's being regulated and how it gets approved. Particular dollar amount should go before. So. I've heard Councilman Dockery here regarding some past missteps within the city regarding budget, finance, course, and we need to keep a tight eye on that. I believe that this type of document does that. I'm okay right now with the dollar amounts being proposed. I think we have to trust our employees and those that they report to with those guidelines. And if it's anything that's looks like it's above the 25,000, another mark that's larger expense to the city, we'll bring that before council and the governance. But I don't think we need a lot of micromanagement on this. But definitely something that needs to get put into place. I'm in agreement. Also, Councilman Dockery, I believe that using the company credit card. I know a lot of the companies will do that now. If you take that out of a fund line, I think it's easier to track. That way, looks neater, within the books, and I'm okay moving forward with it's something like this, something similar. We can discuss what funds and how much, your date, but thank you for doing this. It's needed.
Dan, Ryan, do you have any comment?
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm always taking place. But my issue is, when I said I do serve on council, I have the responsibility, as all you do, to know basically where every penny's spent. That's my hiccup.
But if this is approved in the budget, Brian, we have to say so. Isn't that crazy that we're talking about too? And if we already approved it in February, so they have the money to spend, isn't this basically telling keeping their, avoiding them having to come back to us for individual stuff that's already been in the budget?
Well, that's a two-part question.
Okay, then give me a two-part answer.
First part is when we're talking about vehicle purchases that are already specifically on a line item in the budget. I don't disagree. But when they're talking about taking other funds out of line items, just so they don't go over their total budget to buy something that's not line item in the budget, we need to know about.
I mean, I could agree with that. I thought this was just about stuff that had already been budgeted for. And it would avoid them having to come back. That's what I thought. And I also agree with the credit card thing too.
I mean, I think it covers both bases the way it's written. So, I'm not gonna pick on PD, say police department. They could, if they want to spend something that we haven't appropriated through the budget, they can take money from this account, that line item, and buy it just as, up to a certain amount. Just as long as they don't go over their total budget for the year, the way this is written.
I guess I didn't see it that way, so good point then.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to agree with you. I'm gonna agree with you too, Brian. I don't know what that dollar amount is. I want to look at this a little bit more and digest it, but a credit card, that's huge. There's no reason. I mean, we just talked about using some points for something else in the city, and that's a benefit that we should use, not the employee. The other thing is, let's get that discrepancy. We kind of looked at it two different ways. Maybe we need to add some verbiage to this that will further explain this is already things that were budgeted, or versus emergencies that pop up, because there is going to be emergencies that pop up, and we've got to give some latitude to get those repairs made in a timely manner.
This is a good starting point. So I think you did a great job in bringing us forward. And Brian raised some good questions, and I think we can find a happy medium here to make this work. But I think it's important to have this policy. I do believe in that.
I agree, we need a policy. I just don't like the way this one's written. I mean, in here also for general expenditures, they can take money out of petty cash. To me, that's not the function of petty cash.
And again, this is a starting point. I mean, this is the first time we've seen this. We got it last weekend, so we can look at that and massage there where we need to do and come up with the policy will work.
I echo everyone's desire on the credit cards for the employees too. Grand even were very tight about that, and they have to use the credit card for the company always. Otherwise, it needs 2 forms to be approved, and it's quite a big deal if they don't use their company credit card. So I think we should be the same. As far as this goes, this is a good starting point. I think the numbers are just a little high for me. I'm a little more conservative. But also, you know, we need to talk about how much the city administrator can approve too. And we talked about that, I want to say 3 to 4 months ago, that we approved her to approve a certain amount during emergency situations. And I think that's important to give her some latitude too. Show that, you know, she can run it without us, you know, being in a meeting too. So this is a great starting point, and we'll just have to adjust the amounts so we can get something formally presented then.
All right, sounds like everybody's in agreement that we feel the city should have a policy or a program, whatever you want to call this. And this is a good starting point. But I also agree that since this is the starting point, what happened with the city clerk and what's currently still going on with the utility board, that maybe we should look at the numbers and what the maximum is and reduce all those as a starting point, because it's always easier to turn them up. But that gives you some precaution to not get into a problem if you have a lower amount to start with.
We did. We did just, Nevada, somebody alluded to it earlier, we just did in the last 2 years. Approved up to a $5,000, I don't remember it specifically be for engineering, but in case of emergency, the department heads could spend up to $5,000, but they had to tell us after.
So then we have a consensus here to move forward, work on this and bring it back around.
Yep.
Okay. 3B, discussion on the renewal of the Quad City Chamber Business Economic Growth Service Agreement, additional 5 years. On you for that again.
I think it's so. Okay. So we've been a member of the partnership agreement with the Quad City Chamber for at least the last 4 years that we've had an agreement for. We started around just over 9,000, and our last year of that agreement, we're going to be paying 10,200 for the annual fee. The chamber has put together a proposal for the next agreement, which they are proposing to be at 5 years and increases anywhere from 8% to 10%, putting us at 11,300 for the first year and at 16,600 for the last year of that 5-year agreement. I think the services that we use the most at the Quad City Chamber are they bring us requests for information from national site selectors. If one of our sites gets selected for one of those companies to look at development, they put together and coordinate all of the discussions with the developer, the utility groups that are going to need to be involved, all of the cities that have a site that was selected for a final round. They bring them out on the tours. They also meet with us quarterly and give us metrics for the region on how many jobs were created, how many developments they have in the works or that are looking at our area, how many were successfully closed, expansions, all of that information. They provide that to us on a quarterly basis. Currently, it's the big seven, which would be Rock Island, Moline, East Moline, Davenport, Bettendorf, and then the two counties, Rock Island and Scott County. And we are the only community outside of the big seven that currently has a partnership agreement with the Quad City Chamber. Jeff, do you have anything to add for the services we currently have with them?
No, mostly it's been requests for proposals for lots of information that I've seen come through. I do work with them quite a bit on economic development type issues. You know, I did have a conversation with Councilman Campbell about this earlier today, asked some questions. I guess I haven't been here long enough to say for sure whether this is a good value for the money. The staff there is great. They do good work. I don't know that anything recently has come out of this for you guys, and maybe some of the longer time council members would know. But Realco came to us on their own. A lot of small development we're seeing came to us on their own. I'm not sure that I would recommend a 5-year commitment to this. I don't know if it's possible to do something smaller. I kind of talked about this with Councilman Campbell earlier today, but I mean, I feel like if I had another year or two under my belt, I'd be able to give you a better recommendation. But right now, I know it's a good organization. We work a lot with them. They've helped us set up some meetings, but that's a pretty steep increase, I think, for us percentage wise over, you know, I mean, more than a 50% increase. So I'm just not sure.
After talking with Nevada and Jeff today, I'm not certain that we're getting our bang for buck. And the amount of increase over the next 5 years seems significant. You know, we're also talking, the next item on the agenda is, you know, money for Rock Island Arsenal Defense Alliance. We also give money to Bi-State, you know, and I mean, that adds up. I kind of like Jeff's idea of maybe going back to the chamber and saying, hey, we'll stick with what we're paying right now, and we'll reevaluate it in a year or two and maybe negotiate with him, and Jeff can have a better understanding of if it really truly is in our best interest to continue this relationship.
Is this services agreement in addition to the yearly membership to the Quad City Chamber we pay?
The yearly membership is our services agreement amount that we pay for the chamber. So this would be the new annual charge that we have for that services agreement.
Okay, I look at this and, you know, I don't know what benefit we get out of this personally. The other part of it is Davenport Industrial Park's full. Where are they gonna look next? Right across the street. You know, on this side of the river, the big two, Davenport and Bettendorf, will get priority over us anyways. What we have to offer is location and lower tax base. That would sell on its own. So, you know, if we want to continue the same rate for 1 year, I could probably do that. Otherwise, I'd terminate it.
So I agree with, you know, with everybody, what they said here, but I also looking forward at how much business we've turned away because we don't have infrastructure for the industrial park. We've got to be looking forward, and hopefully that study will help us define how we get there. So if we could extend it for 1 year, I'd be in favor of that. But do we also get that benefit from Bi-State referring companies as well?
I haven't experienced economic development leads coming from Bi-State. They do more of our regional planning for transportation, environment, planning studies for trails, and they are very heavy on transportation. I mean, they offer a lot of services outside of that, but we don't see a lot for economic development leads from.
So that being said, then I would say that we have that conversation with the chamber of main reason, or one of the main reasons why we would want to stay involved of our expectations, and that would be growing that industrial park. And if they can't give us a clear and concise definition of how they can do that, first, then we have to question whether it is worth it.
My experience with them over the last few years is they're after the mega project. I don't know if the mega project's in our best interest. Anybody that lived around here in the seventies, Caterpillar was a mega project. It was supposed to be in Eldridge, and there was a lawsuit with the city of Davenport, they ended up in Davenport. If we want to put, when Caterpillar closed, it substantially hurts the local economy. You know, I'm not a fan of putting all of our eggs in a mega project. I'd rather see small regional developments to diversify our tax base, so to speak. I don't see a benefit of trying to get a mega project, and that's their main emphasis.
And I agree, and really for 10,000 to 16,000 in 5 years, that can do a lot to our parks. That can do a lot for our infrastructure each year. There's a lot of little things that people want here in our town that I think we should keep local. I agree with Brian. The mega projects can stay in the mega towns, and we can go after the little guys. That really will take care of us in the end, I think.
Certain if it was the bi-state or the chamber, but like I do recall a couple of city administrators ago, a couple of proposals for the street right directly across from Coal Park, where I believe we might have been in the top five at that particular time, but they went elsewhere. So if we do continue this or continue at any dollar amount, I would like to see more interaction from them within the city of Eldridge to sit down with us, to send us particular leads, so we can increase down there. It's been a goal ever since I've been on the council, and I know we really have hit it the past 11 years, trying to concentrate now to offset that tax base. We're doing great with residential. People love Eldridge. They want to come. Raise families and retire. We're just seeing that. Just look down there off of first and Lincoln. But we do need to be proactive. Look for some type of businesses with that, even if it's some type of warehouse. We've seen that. We got 80 and back at that industrial park. Just to be proactive with that, ensure that we do have the infrastructure put in place, or water or sewer. Ensure that sewer can handle the project. One reason we were turned down for one, because possibly the sewer. It was supposed to be able to pre-treat and so forth too. I think there was concerns with that. So, yeah, I think I concur with the rest of the councilmen on here. That dollar amount's very stiff when it comes to 5 years. I would like to see more interaction, also clarification as to what our dollars are going for, and to be able to come and meet, sit down with you guys. So, and do some real economic development. Doesn't have to be large. Councilman Duffy concurred, but we need to fill in some of these strip malls with something that's going to be main attractions for the city. And also look for possible potential growth. First in Lincoln. We just need to work together. We got some visionaries on here. We need to make sure that they're supporting us fully with that dollar amount.
Any other comments on that?
Just a quick one, Frank.
Okay.
I don't feel that the Quad City Chamber is a good organization, but I don't think they even communicate with their Girl Scout chamber. Not at all. They want to be the powerhouse in the area. We are one of the small dogs population-wise. Tax-wise, we're a big dog for the least amount of taxes. I think people will come here naturally. Once Davenport's about out of room, their next corridor is the 280. They ran that sewer line up there to feed it. We've got water and sewer down a lot of the acreage everyone's been referring to. later in the meeting, we have another subject. We don't have water out to that area or sewer out to that area. But I think Eldridge is positioned very well over the years, just we're in the center of the county. We've got 80 just south of us. We've got 61 running through us. Transportation for anybody coming, it's got to be an ideal place. I can't imagine if someone wants to locate in the Quad City area, they don't say, what is this Eldridge on the map?
So would everybody concur that we all question what value we're getting from this, but as Jeff was saying, if he had a little more experience, another year or two, and I heard one of you guys talk about maybe you were willing to extend this for another year, that there's a lot of activity on those parcels of land, people looking at them, whatever, between us and Davenport, which is in our jurisdiction. So maybe there would be value to extend this for a year if they would let us keep paying the same rate we are and let Jeff have more experience with them for another year. And we can come back around, but with activity that's going on down there, and like Brian said, they're out of room. I think we might be shooting ourselves in the foot if we cut this off this year yet. And let Jeff get the experience to work with them more and maybe encourage them to get involved with our own chamber.
Clarification, this expires next June, right? So we've got a year, short of a year to make this decision. I would say that we table it and maybe have more discussion with them on our concerns, but I don't think we can make a decision right now. I'd rather see that study come back so we kind of have a plan and we know what the next 5 years looks like before we commit to something like this.
And if you notice, one of the agenda items, on our council meeting tonight, went through plan and zone, a few neighbors down there all joined together and all agreed to go for the same zoning, so there will be a large parcel that can be developed with multiple things.
Well, this was for discussion, so there we had agreements then to just let the contract ride for the year that's remaining, and maybe we'll look at it again closer to when it expires. Okay. On to item number 3, continuing the annual contribution to the Rock Island Arsenal Defense Alliance at an increased amount of $7,500. Supposed to begin on January 1st, 2025. That.
So RIATA is the Rock Island Arsenal Defense Alliance. It has changed names a couple of times, so I tried to kind of track back when we started contributing as a community to that organization. I'm not exactly sure how long we've been part of that, but I know that our annual contribution has been $5,000 a year. As you can see with the report that's in your packet as well, there's the history and the purpose of what this Defense Alliance does, what goals they've accomplished, and what they're looking to do in the upcoming fiscal year to give some explanation of why they're looking for an increased contribution. Currently, it's the Big Seven again that contributes to this group, along with Milan, Silvis, and LeClaire and Eldridge. They do offer tours of the island for community leaders and their groups. They're getting ready to partner with the University of Iowa and Iowa State University on research and development to connect with them. I believe they currently have the largest 3D printer on the island, so they're using that to work with partnerships with those universities, research and development for what can come, what benefits there can be from that printer. So going forward, if we continue to be a contributing community, their ask for the next year, and I believe they're on calendar year, would be $7,500 and $75,000 to accomplish the goals that they have for fiscal year 25. We are not in a contract term with them for any period of years. We would just be looking at agreeing to give them a contribution in that higher amount. We're gonna continue that.
A little bit of history on this. We've been doing it for over a decade. It was originally started when the Army was talking about Bracken military bases and closing the Rock Island Arsenal. These funds go towards a lobbyist in Washington, D.C. That's what they go for. I've always questioned, our net benefit. But that's what it's for. It's increasing the payment to lobbyists in Washington, D.C. to try to promote the Rock Island Arsenal. And if you want to look at it a different way, Rock Island Arsenal's got private industry on there now. That, to a certain degree, competes with us for developing sites for people. They had all that wasted warehouse space over there. They turned that into private businesses that are now located on the Rock Island Arsenal. But this money goes for lobbyists. I'm not in favor of continuing.
I would agree. I don't think that spending taxpayers' money on lobbying fits in anywhere. So I would not be in favor of renewing that.
I would also agree with Brian and Ryan on that. I'm not certain, again, I see the benefit. It's not our responsibility to fund the lobbyists.
I truly just don't see a benefit to Eldridge. And I'm not gonna pay taxpayer money if it's not gonna pay for that responsibility.
Only thing that I look at it from this standpoint of it. Could this be looked at a particular convention where it's keeping jobs within the Clark City region and, a percentage of those individuals may reside here in Elbridge? With doing so, we're keeping those jobs. We're looking at potential other investment, maybe within the arsenal, even though company, of course, it'd be nice to have around here. But if the jobs here in the Clark cities and keep this economy strong, that mirrors what else these other companies are doing. And when they're looking at relocating all cities, because, they're pretty vibrant here. Is there any type of correlation that we can say, okay, well, this amount of money can contribute to that? It may benefit us here locally. That's the only thing, is thinking outside the box. That's all.
I see where you're coming from that, but then you gotta ask yourself, do we start giving money to John Deere for lobbying or other big companies in town? It's gotta stop somewhere. And, like Brian said, people are gonna come. If there are shutdowns, they're still not gonna move out of the area completely. So the fact that it's lobbying, I just can't swallow that.
In their defense, I think they had a critical role back when it first started to keep the arsenal from being closed. It was in a political football game with politicians trying to close it to move it to a more senior senator's state.
So we have a consensus here that majority of you feel that the time maybe has come and passed on the benefit to the arsenal, like what Brian said. There was some strong, I think that's been on a chopping block a couple times. And now with the changes that they did, how many months ago did we have a meeting up at your office with some representatives? A few months ago.
June.
Mayor June, and they've made quite a few changes within the arsenal itself to make themselves pretty valuable. And, they can be cut at any time because it's the government, but the changes they did on the arsenal as far as manufacturing process themselves, military, they've made themselves more valuable. So I think it would be really hard pressed for them to define why they wanted to close it, the changes they did and what they've been able to do over there. simple process. They can take a piece of raw metal, meld it, machine it, fabricate it, chrome plate it, nickel plate it, paint it, whatever, and actually take raw materials to a final product. And with that much capability in one place is why I don't see how they could shutter the arsenal with improvements in the money they put into that. So if you guys are on grids, I understand what you were saying, Adrian, but I also understand we can't go and rally for every business of every citizen that lives in Eldridge. That just doesn't make sense. So is a consensus then to let this ride out and discontinue this?
Yes.
And nothing prevents us, Your Honor, in the future, if the fracking threat reappears, jumping back in. Right now, I don't see a need for it.
The majority's decision. It's okay with that. I just wanted to make sure that we were looking at it from all perspectives before we discontinue this and ensure that it wasn't hurt us regionally here or in order to sell more cities. So individual.
So we all in agreement then? Okay, we'll move on. Number 4A, discussion, local business directional signage.
I can take that here.
Okay,
I think basically the memo that I sent said it best and explained it well. I won't read that entire thing, but in a nutshell, at some point in the past, the city allowed businesses to purchase directional signs and they were placed at different locations around town, pointing to the businesses. Over the years, they became a maintenance issue for city staff. The staff started also getting requests that they couldn't fulfill because there was so many of those signs that were already up. And then as new businesses came to town, they couldn't keep up with the requests. They were also lower, inferior quality signs than regular street signs, so they bend in the wind. They were easily damaged, and staff would then have to go out and fix those or replace those or take them down. I don't know when this was started. I could find no policies, no resolutions, no ordinances that you dictated the start of this program. I did find receipts from as far back as 2014 that these signs were being purchased and being put up. But when I started the city a year and a half ago and received requests about it and checked with Public Works, they said that the program wasn't being continued. They did, for the reasons that I just stated. And so they weren't taking new sign requests and putting them up. And they were actually taking the signs down as they became faded or too damaged. There were several that were damaged in the derecho, went down there because they're basically destroyed. As construction came and went, some of those signs were taken down. So at this point, we did discover there is a Iowa DOT program in place. Not all businesses will qualify for that. Some of them would, and they have a program in place that handles the maintenance in that for the city of Eldridge. There are several businesses that currently participate. So city staff is just looking to send out a letter to the few remaining businesses that do have Eldridge signs up and let them know the program is being discontinued and offer to return their signs to them if they would like to keep them. That's where we're at with this.
Jeff, in the handout you did a couple weeks ago, aren't we gonna follow DOT where as long as we follow their rules, DOT, if we follow DOT rules, they can put signs up for certain things?
Yeah, with the Iowa DOT program is currently effective in Eldridge. And I think that's follows state guidelines for that. But it has nothing to do with Eldridge City Code or our code. They follow state guidelines for that. I believe Hungry Hobo is the only business that has a sign that's basically on a city street in Eldridge because they're so far off of the interstate. I believe all the other ones that participate just have signs on the interstate going into their business. But there are certain businesses, and there's a brochure that the city's in possession of that describes the program, and it's a link to it. There are certain businesses, I believe, that are involved with the Eldridge program that wouldn't qualify for that DOT program because they have stricter guidelines for it. There's really nothing we can do about that in lieu of creating some type of extensive program of our own, which I really don't think the city has an interest in.
No, and for the full disclosure, I asked for this to be on the council agenda. Because if we're going to enforce or take signs down, we should probably do it by resolution to give city staff, the legal right to do it. So that's why Jeff brought it forward on committee of the whole. I'm in favor. I just wanted to make sure we did it the right way so we could enforce it. That's all.
So if everyone's in agreement on that, I'm happy to prepare a resolution for the next council meeting. Just to go ahead and do that.
All the local businesses that's participating now or in the past, are they aware of this? They received notification from us or state, anything?
No, because I sent an email to the city council with the proposed letter to send out. And that's when Councilman Dockery asked it to be put on the agenda. So they have not been notified yet. They will after they watch the YouTube video.
If we have to do anything, just like due diligence or out of respect, to give them a heads up. What the community's done, or is that really necessary?
No, I would like to send them still. So if we prepare a resolution for the next meeting, the next step, I'm recommending is that we send out the letter, letting them know a date range when they'd be taking down an offer to, give the sign back to them at that point. I believe the signs cost in the neighborhood of $70 from the receipts I've seen so far. And they've been up for, 10 years or more. So I'd say they received a pretty good value for, what they received.
And they can continue that with the DOT if they chose to.
Yeah, and if they meet their guidelines, there may, like I said, they're a little stricter. There are a few businesses, I think, that wouldn't be able to qualify for that program, but for the most part, most of them would, I believe.
So we have a consensus then to let Jeff create a resolution and send the letters out to the business owners on the signs that were part of the Eldridge program. Okay, there you go, Jeff.
Thank you.
Number 4B, discussion on potential annexation of Revolve Farms Incorporated parcel. Yep.
Yeah, so this came out of, several conversations we've been having with some of the Southwest business owners. Part of that you'll see later, on the regular council agenda with the rezoning, some of these, farm owners working together, to market properties. But we were recently contacted by the Kai family. They own 4 parcels that you can see on the map that I included in the memo, just outside of the southwest city limits, kind of along Slopertown Road. They also own several parcels just across the line within the other city limits. They see the same thing that Councilman Dockery said that he saw before. Davenport's getting filled up. Some of those properties that were sold to development in Davenport were theirs, south of Slopertown Road. They also see that development coming north into Eldridge. They would like to be prepared for that, as we want to be prepared for that. And so they have said that they would be willing to submit to a voluntary annexation of those four parcels if the city was interested in that. If that's something the city wants to pursue, I would suggest we also, if we're gonna do it, talk to a few of the other property owners down there and see if we could get a little bit bigger chunk annexed all at one time. But I think it'd be our benefit. As you can see, Davenport is a little bit further west right now than we are with their most recent annexation, and that's labeled on the map. This would put us even with them, maybe even a parcel further, depending on their interest. Just so we can protect ourselves for future development in that area.
If we don't, Davenport will. I think we have a choice here. Because eventually we're gonna limit ourselves as well.
I think we should just go ahead if he's willing to voluntarily annex in. I got 5 pieces, Jeff.
And that could be, I'm seeing 4 there, but 4 within the blue line.
Printed my own map off the
Did you? Okay,
assessor's webpage with all the properties they own in that area.
okay.
But, I would welcome them into the city of Eldridge. And I think you're correct. I think we need to, look, and progress further to the west and see what we can fill in there for the future. We're bound by the south by Davenport. If you look at what Bettendorf is currently doing on their comp plan, they want to annex all the way over to Utica Ridge Road. So if we're not proactive here, we're going to be pinched in like the city of Moline. The city of Moline right now has no place to develop unless they tear something down. And we've got to have the vision to think out 100 years. Where do we see the city? If someone's willing to do it, they're adjacent to the corporate limits. We'd be fools not to.
I guess with your permission then, I could develop a letter to send to some of the other neighboring property owners that are around these revolved properties. And just let them know that the city will be proceeding with an annexation, ask if they would like to be part of it. Tax wise, I think it would be better for them to do so.
With it being Agron, it's going to be very similar. We don't have a stormwater management fee on our parcel. I believe Davenport does. So, no, I think it might actually be cheaper in the long run for them to be in Eldridge. Then when they develop, it's definitely going to be cheaper. But I would try to get this one, see if you can get it signed up, then approach other ones. We don't want to have too many irons in the fire where one could scold it and kill the deal.
I agree.
Good. Sounds good.
Get the ink right first.
Thank you, Joe. Number 4C, discussion on participation in the ICAP, Iowa Clean Air Attainment Program grant application for regional transit study with Bettendorf, Davenport, and
A couple of weeks ago, we were approached by State, who was coordinating a meeting for Davenport and Bettendorf to talk about applying for an Iowa Clean Air Attainment Program grant to get funding to do a transit study for the region to see if the 2 transit systems that those cities operate could be used better efficiently together and what the needs are, as well as looking at the transit needs throughout the county. So they invited Eldridge and LeClaire to participate in that meeting if we wanted to. That meeting took place the week I was gone. Jeff did go to that and listen in on that conversation. So he may have some more to add, but generally for this budget or this grant, we would each pay a portion of what the local share would be in an 80-20 federally funded grant to do a transit study, and what they would be looking at specifically for Eldridge and Leclerc is whether or not there's any need for public transit services here. We currently don't have any, and whether there would be an opportunity for a larger transit system to combine together in some way and fulfill those needs for smaller communities that are found to have a need for those systems and want those systems in their community. If it is something that the council is interested in moving forward with, we did get a breakdown of what that funding would cost based on a $200,000 budget. That budget number came from some previous studies that Bi-State was aware of that had done a regional study or a transit study of this size. Davenport would be the lead sponsor if we did go in on that grant application and the funds were awarded. So they would handle that and the distribution of funds accordingly. We would be looking at about $1,768 for our portion if we do want to go ahead and get involved in that transit study. If not, then they would split it up between 2 communities or 3 if they don't participate.
I think it's worth spending that. Well, 1,100 or whatever it was. If you look at the way Bi-State's set up, Eldridge is big rural or the urban area as far as grants going out. So we're competing with Davenport, but never fund those where the smaller towns is a different division within Bi-State. I think we need to play nice to at least be at the table for that. This it's a big thing, like we're a team player with them. $1,100 or $1,200. I think it's a good investment for us.
Councilman Darby here, this is an investment for the whole region, which reflects upon us. We have had a discussion in the past regarding like a public transportation out here. You have residents here who may not obtain, have their own means of a vehicle. They're limited getting to appointments within the city, out of our city limits. There's individuals who work outside of the Eldridge, and there's limitations with a few who don't have transportation. So to be able to have a source coming in and out, we're really opening this up for us. Be conducive to great jobs, to allow more people to want to come to Eldridge, who may be limited by the transportation. And anytime when you're looking at transportation, and plus clean air transportation, pretty much that's going to get funded. The government is really looking into that. We can stay within that pool. It will help us out greatly, I feel. So it's a benefit to the residents and the whole region.
And it's a benefit to our seniors too, because Riverbend Transit only comes out there on Wednesdays. So if our seniors have anything in Davenport to go to, they have to make it on Wednesdays. And to get that ride, that's, done through the government. So it'd be great to have more opportunity for all of us here at home.
I would agree just for the same reasons you guys mentioned. And gosh, we potentially saved about $17,000 over this meeting. So this appears to be money that would be well spent. And we would see the direct impact.
They did say this would be a multi-year thing, because they have to apply for the grant, they get the grant, they do the study, they compile all that information. So you wouldn't see the results for this for probably, 2 to 3 years, but at least you'd have the information then to, make a decision if you needed to.
We're all in agreement to proceed with this? Okay. That concludes committee hold. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Motion to Daphne. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned at 6:58.